Dark Souls is one of the most important games in the history of the industry, and that's in no small part thanks to its approach to boss design. Facing off against these daunting adversaries is often my favourite part of a Souls game, so today we're continuing my series ranking every boss in From Software's Soulsborne catalogue, with every boss in Dark Souls 1 ranked from worst to best. I can already see the steam coming out of many of my viewers' ears. Don't get it twisted, Dark Souls is a phenomenal game, but there's no denying that it has some completely unreasonable difficulty thrown in. As with all early Souls games, Gravelord Nito has this in spades. The fact that you have to take mandatory fall damage when entering the arena is just ridiculous. Well, actually, you can use the Silver Cat ring to take less fall damage. To the people that use that excuse to defend this boss, I don't like you. But I would be able to look past it if the boss himself was any good. I complained in the Demon Souls boss ranking about the worst boss of that game, Fool's Idol, having regular enemies thrown in the arena with the boss. Well, actually, you can use Nito to kill them. I don't care. Seriously, please be quiet. It's still not a good design decision. Nito himself has a mediocre moveset, with the Toxic Spike being a particular offender. He doesn't even have the luxury of having a pleasant run back. You have to go through the absolute worst area in the game for about 2 minutes every time you die to this bum of a boss. The fact that any boss ever managed to be worse than this is a miracle to me, but we'll get to that with the next boss ranking. We all knew it was going to be near the bottom. While I don't personally have it at the very bottom of the barrel, it's undeniably a terrible fight. There's no depth to the combat whatsoever, you just have to position so you don't get thrown into the pit of despair. Everything that needs to be said about this boss has been done to death already, but I felt I needed to take at least some time to voice my hatred for this unfinished fumble of a FromSoft fight. 3 entries into the list and the fans are still mad at me, but it's undeniable that Seath just isn't a very good boss. His run back is egregiously long and makes even fighting him tedious every time. Pair with that Seath's bland move pool and unengaging combat, and this is a boss that absolutely deserves to be in the bottom 3. Few bosses can claim to be as boring as Gwendolyn. He has a grand total of 3 attacks, all projectiles that force you to sit behind a pillar and wait it out, then chase him down the corridor and repeat until he's dead. It's incredibly easy and brings nothing of value to the table. There's 2 glaring problems with this boss, the arena and the dogs. Everyone hates Soulsborne dogs, and when 2 of them are dumped in a tiny arena with a boss, they become 1,000 times worse. The Capra Demon is a decently designed enemy, but I feel it would have been better left as a plain regular enemy in the Demon Ruins. Maybe the Stray Demon doesn't deserve to be so low, but there are plenty of reasons I've got it here. It's a reskin of the great tutorial boss, which was designed as a tutorial boss, not a mid-game challenge. On top of this, regular enemies can follow you into the arena, which is just an added frustration. I discussed my hatred for mandatory fall damage with Nito, and here it's no less ridiculous. The boss itself isn't too hard, it's just everything surrounding it that makes it a terrible encounter. The Ceaseless Discharge is a strange boss to rank. The fight itself is terrible, the moveset's boring and messy, however the lore and presentation are definitely interesting. I do appreciate the alternate method of defeating this boss, though it's not much more engaging than fighting his awful moveset head on. I have 2 main gripes with this boss, the moveset and the arena, which are both central aspects of a boss fight. We all know the arena's terrible, though once you get the orange charred ring, it isn't too much of an inconvenience. The problem lies in that many players will not realise you can attain this ring during the boss fight, and will be forced to contend with the lava without it. On top of this, the Centipede Demon's moveset is so unengaging, and most of the time you can't even see which attacks it's using. This boss isn't abhorrent, but it has its fair share of flaws, and I simply don't understand why they chose this to bring back in Night Rain. The Demon Fire Sage has none of the strengths of the original Asylum Demon, though it also doesn't suffer from all the flaws present in the fight against the Stray Demon. As a result, it sits as an utterly forgettable boss, though its existence doesn't particularly frustrate me. While the Moonlight Butterfly isn't a very interesting boss, I do think it's a little better than it gets credit for. Granted, not by much, but I find it a largely inoffensive, if unenjoyable encounter. Don't get it twisted though, it's still not a good boss. The 4 Kings aren't all that terrible, but I just don't enjoy the DPS test. All this fight really consists of is attacking relentlessly and hoping you can kill 1 king before the next spawns. The setting is really cool, but the runback sucks and the Abyss makes depth perception a large part of the boss's challenge, and I always hate that. Pinwheel is an overhated boss. The lore is fascinating and the presentation is great. It's just unfortunate that the fight is so pathetically easy. The run back is terrible, though it's not all that worth mentioning since the odds of dying to Pinwheel is slim to none. I don't love Pinwheel, but to see him at the bottom of so many boss ranking videos just doesn't make sense to me. The Taurus Demon is a classic fight that serves to teach new players about the varying arena designs in the game. It encourages them to pay attention to their surroundings, to discover the ladder leading up to 2 archers and a spot for a plunging attack at the back of the arena. This ability to plunging attack does somewhat trivialise the fight, though if you choose not to use it, the Taurus Demon's moveset makes it pretty annoying to fight him on the narrow bridge arena. I like this boss as a teaching moment, but the lackluster combat is what holds it back at the very top of the mediocre tier. Priscilla's main appeal is her interesting invisibility mechanics. I do find it a nice touch having to follow her footsteps in the snow, rather than just engaging with a traditional boss moveset. While more conventional movesets are more up my street, and Priscilla is certainly easier than I'd like, I acknowledge that making this boss difficult would likely end up frustrating due to the invisibility. The Iron Golem has a decent enough moveset, nothing spectacular, but just the sight of this imposing giant atop one of the most brutal areas in the game is reason to give him some points. My favourite thing about this boss is the ability to knock him off the map. It's a moment of slapstick comedy that brings a lighter tone incredibly rare to see in these games. All that earns Iron Golem his spot in the decent tier. The Gatekeeper boss of the series' first DLC is often overshadowed by the rest of its bosses, and while I do think it's undeniably the worst, the Sanctuary Guardian still holds up as a pretty good boss by Dark Souls 1's primitive standards. It has a great design and an arena I really feel deserves more praise, paired with combat that is above average for a beast-like boss, making this boss well worthy of recognition that it rarely receives. The Asylum Demon was the boss where FromSoft truly found their footing with tutorial bosses. He at first seems an insurmountable challenge, trademark of the series and inspired by the Vanguard Demon, but thinking around the problem provides players with a much easier option, teaching them many key parts of the game. His moveset is certainly basic, though it's absolutely fitting for the purpose this boss serves in the game. There's also some great memes which originated from this boss, so it's one I feel is deserving of appraisal. Sif is a boss that receives high praise almost entirely for her lore. While I generally value quality gameplay more than an interesting story, Sif's is decent to the point where her amazing set dressing brings the fight up this high. It's always a struggle to finish, not due to its difficulty, but because nobody wants to put this doggo out of her misery. The fight gets even better with the addition of the DLC, which adds an incredible secret cutscene that makes this excellent set piece all the more engaging. This infamous duo boss began the trend of early game stonewalls that haunt new players in every Souls game. The reason the Bell Gargoyles work so well is due to the admirable balancing of the pair. The decision to have one introduce you to their moveset and have the second join the fight halfway through is a great design choice by FromSoft, and a formula that has been used successfully in their games since. The Gargoyles movesets themselves aren't amazing, and can be annoying to deal with due to Dark Souls' lack of omnidirectional rolling, but compared to the bland and basic designs of many of Dark Souls 1's bosses, the Bell Gargoyles stand out as some of the best bosses in the main game.
You on Kindle are all the same. You watch my videos every week, yet never once do you take your blades to that subscribe button. You are content to let me rot atop this mountain of unclicked buttons, to let me suffer for eternities to come until every boss has been ranked from worst to best. I did not wish for it to end this way. Why couldn't you have simply subscribed?
Gwyn is a boss all about presentation. He's such a masterpiece in subtle storytelling, and presents the themes of Dark Souls perfectly. He's fallen far from his prime, now nothing but a husk of his former self. The music is perhaps the most iconic in the series, and complements Gwyn perfectly. The only thing holding this fight back for me is his mechanics. Healing windows are virtually non-existent in this fight, requiring you to beat it more or less without taking a hit. Parrying makes him much easier, and fits with the lore, though it doesn't make for a hugely enjoyable encounter. So while I love Gwyn's presentation and respect him as a spectacle, he is significantly held back by the lackluster combat mechanics. I'll say off the bat that Manus does not deserve all the reverence he gets as the hardest boss in Dark Souls. He's up there, but in comparison to so many other bosses in the series, he's not all that tough. That being said, he's one of the most mechanically varied fights in DS1, and his extreme degree of speed really shakes up the gameplay to make it far more enjoyable. On top of that is his incredible lore and connection to Artorias, as well as likely being the furtive pygmy. Everything about Manus is solid, though his moveset doesn't quite have the polish demanded to reach the high standards of bosses higher on this list. Nice chest ahead. In all honesty, Quailag is one of the best bosses in the main game of Dark Souls 1. Her moveset is pretty diverse for that game, and every move just feels great to interact with. The lava she spreads around the arena can get annoying, but is part of the challenge that encourages effective management of all the aspects of the boss's moveset. Quailag has an incredibly memorable design, is placed at a key point of the game, and her moveset is one of the best in the game. Definitely a great blueprint for Souls bosses that would follow. This placement is definitely going to be a hot take. I know most people criticise Gaping Dragon for being too easy or having a one-dimensional moveset, but I can't help but enjoy this fight. First off, the design of the boss itself is amazing, and the introductory cutscene is one of my favourites in the series. I'm not going to deny that there isn't a lot going for his moveset, but I just enjoy hacking away at his legs while this grotesque, horrifying creature attempts to steal my souls at the bottom of one of the worst areas in the game. It all just comes together very nicely to provide a fun, while not hugely challenging experience, but it's sometimes just what you need. This fight is just so fun to me, and it's my list, so I can place it wherever the hell I want. I will say, the Night Rain variant of this boss for some reason makes it significantly worse. Calamite is my personal favourite dragon boss in Souls, which is definitely a controversial opinion, given the popularity of fights such as Midir and Bale. What sets Calamite apart for me is his great mechanics. While some of his hitboxes can be janky due to Dark Souls' age, it's mostly an issue I feel is overshadowed by the brilliant design of the fight. His flame attacks are great, his melee swipes give the fight another level of challenge, and the Calamity Vision is one of the coolest attacks in Dark Souls 1. Not to mention his design is incredible, a dragon with black scales not dissimilar to that of Lich Dragon Fortis Axe. Calamite is one of the hardest bosses in all of Souls for me, and I find that challenge incredibly engaging. Unfortunately for Calamite, the bosses higher on this list do everything he does, but better. Ornstein and Smough are the best multi-enemy boss in the series, if you don't count the Twin Princes. This is perhaps the most iconic boss in all of Soulsborne, and it's easy to see why. From Software used all the tools at their disposal to create an incredibly balanced encounter, with the classic big and slow, small and speedy combo, the pillars in the arena helping to create distance. Everything comes together to make an incredibly enjoyable 2v1 encounter. The second phase is great as well, and I love the choice the player is given in which of the two powered up bosses they want to fight. This boss does suffer from Dark Souls' dated AI, but even so it stands as one of the absolute greatest bosses in the series. It's just unfortunate how badly Dark Souls falls off after this fight. Artorias has some of my favourite lore and build-up of any Souls boss. It's unsurprising given he had entire DLC centred around him, but Artorias really does take it to another level. His design is so cool, the broken arm being a mark of From's environmental storytelling. While Dark Souls 1 is incredibly clunky and not nearly as refined as newer Souls games, it's really hard to see that in this boss. Artorias has combat that feels more akin to that of Dark Souls 3 than his own game, and it's just as highly perfected as the bosses from the third game in the trilogy. I consider every move he possesses to be extremely well balanced, challenging and fair. A balance the first Dark Souls sometimes struggles to meet. The only thing holding Artorias back from the highest tier, that being the phenomenal tier, is his dated design, with some hitboxes, movesets and interactions showing the age of Dark Souls 1. For the time he was made, Artorias was an absolutely monumental achievement in boss design, likely my favourite released in any game at that point. There you have it, my personal ranking of the bosses in Dark Souls 1 from worst to best. It's simply my opinion on a subjective medium as always, and you're free to disagree, as long as you remain respectful of differing opinions. If you at least enjoyed the video, a like and subscribe, even a comment below would be massively appreciated, as it goes such a long way to increasing the reach of the channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time to rank the bosses of perhaps From Software's most controversial game.